All right, up next is a fight I'm pretty excited to talk about in the co-main event of the evening, the light heavyweight division, a battle between top 10 ranked contenders and the number 5 ranked former title challenger in Anthony Lionheart Smith, who comes into the fight with a record of 36 victories and 17 defeats over 50 professional mixed martial arts fights, going up against the wacky, waveable, inflatable, arm-flailing two-man of the light heavyweight division in Johnny Walker, ranked number 7 in the division, coming in with a record of 20 victories with 7 defeats. This is the don't bet fight of the night. Anthony Smith versus Johnny Walker is the fight you avoid from a betting perspective on all sides, my brother. I would not touch this fight anywhere. I wouldn't take Smith as it's even money. It's even money on the money line, minus 110, minus 110. I think Walker will be closer to a favorite when we get to Saturday night, but I don't like this fight from a betting perspective on either side because I really don't know what's going to happen. Like, you never really can get a read on Johnny Walker. He loses the fights that we think he's going to win, and he wins the fights that we think he's going to lose. I mean, how many people thought that Corey Anderson was going to knock out Johnny Walker at UFC, what was it? UFC 230? Was it 230 or 217? Who thought that Johnny Walker was going to get knocked out by Corey Anderson? Nobody. Everybody thought it was going to be a highlight reel knockout and a light heavyweight title shot against John Jones for Johnny Walker, and he got knocked out because he played it too, cocky, kept his hands down for too long and got finished. Johnny Walker does not have a good chin. If you hit him on the chin clean, you hurt him, you can put him out. And I mean, he's been knocked out before. He got knocked out by Jamal Hill, but Jamal Hill's the light heavyweight champion who just recently it got announced that they're looking to target that fight for August between Yuri Prochazka, who vacated the title due to injury, and Jamal Hill. I love that fight. I'll talk about that fight on the next podcast. But, Johnny Walker, yeah, he loses to Jamal Hill. Okay, you can forgive him there. Goes to a decision with, who did he go to a decision with? I'm forgetting it right now. Hold on. Let's pull it up. Thiago Santos, who's over in the PFL, who just tested positive for PEDs. A few fighters in the PFL have recently tested positive for PEDs. So, it is what it is. But Johnny Walker loses a decision to Thiago Santos in a boring 5-round snooze fest. But he's on a win streak. He's got a knockout victory over Paul Craig in his last fight at UFC, 287? Was it 287 or 283? 283. UFC 283, he knocks out Paul Craig first round. Paul Craig's grabbing onto his ankle looking for a takedown. As he has Walker's leg in the air, he lands a back fist, drops him, and hurts him up against the cage while Paul Craig's still holding onto his leg. Takes him out. That was a fight I picked Johnny Walker in. And then he has that submission victory over Iwan Cutelaba at UFC 279. Prior to that, a loss to Thiago Santos via decision, and then the loss via knockout to Jamal Hill. But Jamal Hill is currently the UFC light heavyweight champion. And then he defeated Ryan Spann with elbows as he was trying to shoot a takedown. He was landing elbows to the side of the head and then some back fists or hammer fists to the side of the head. But Saif Saud believed that it was illegal blows that finished that fight. Prior to that, he had a loss to Nikita Krylov via unanimous decision, lost to Corey Anderson. Before that, got a knockout victory over Misha Serkinov, a knockout over Justin Ledet, a knockout over Khalil Roundtree. When you look at his UFC victories before he lost to Corey Anderson, I don't really think the Misha Serkinov victory is that great. The Justin Ledet victory, I mean, who could expect anything different from a Justin Ledet fight? The Khalil Roundtree victory is his biggest win, I think. That's his biggest win before he went on this little win streak. Then he beats Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann just knocked out Dominic Reyes, who was a former title challenger, arguably beat John Jones at UFC 247, which was one of the last fights to take place before we went into the COVID pandemic. But the victory over Iwan Cutelaba, that was madness. They were going back and forth, scrambles for scrambles, and eventually he catches Cutelaba in a rear naked choke and submits him, where everybody thought that if there was going to be a submission victory, it was going to be on the side of Iwan Cutelaba. Paul Craig fight we just touched on. When you look at Anthony Smith, before we go to Anthony Smith, let's talk about Walker's record. 20 victories, 7 losses, 19 wins by way of finish, 16 KOs, 3 submissions. On the side of his losses, though, out of his 7 losses, he's been finished 5 times. So he's a kill or be killed fighter. You're either going to get finished or he's going to finish you. Or you're either going to finish him or he's going to finish you. 4 losses by knockout, 1 loss by submission, only 2 losses by decision. But Johnny Walker is not a decision fighter, which coincidentally shows you why that Thiago Santos fight sucks so bad. Looking at Anthony Smith, 36 victories, 17 defeats. Out of his victories, he's got 33 victories via finish out of 36 wins. Only 2 victories by way of decision. when you look at his losses, out of 17 losses, he's got 14 losses by finish and only 3 losses by decision. 14 out of 17 losses come by way of finish. 33 out of 36 victories come by way of finish. So both of these guys are killer be killed fighters. Both of these guys are going to get in each other's face and try to take each other out. I think that Smith is the much more technical fighter. He has the sharper boxing. He has a very solid jab, a very good left hook, and a good right hand. His 1-2 is very crisp and clean. He was hurting Glover Teixeira the entire time in that fight before he eventually got slowed down, grounded and pounded and TKO'd, but he was jabbing him up, jab, 1-2, 1-1-2, 1-2-3, jab, hook, cross. I mean, the boxing of Anthony Smith is clean and crisp. He is a sharp boxer, and I think he has the technical ability and the power to knock out a Johnny Walker who has durability issues and who keeps his hands down so low, keeps his chin up in the air. If he can time him with a big straight right hand, if he can time him stepping in with a check left hook, if he can time him with a 3-2 or a 1-2 down the middle, Anthony Smith can knock out Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker also is going to be at a grappling disadvantage. I know his grappling's getting better. He submitted Kutelaba, who would have been thought to get the submission if the fight ended via submission, like we touched on. But Johnny Walker's grappling's getting better. His scrambles are getting better. He's finding ways to get out of positions. But he does sacrifice a lot of positions, and I think if Smith wins a scramble and is able to take the back of Johnny Walker, he can lock him up in a rear naked choke and get him out of there, or flatten him out and get a ground and pound TKO. I think this fight is so chalky because Walker is so, like I said, he's a wacky, waveable, inflatable, arm flailing tube man, and there's so much uncertainty, a cloud of uncertainty over the head of Johnny Walker. Like, he's a guy where you think he's going to look good, he looks like shit, or you think he's going to look like shit and he looks good. You really can't get a read on him. He's wacky. He's got probably the bigger knockout upside. I would say that the more technical fighter is Anthony Smith, 100%, but I think the guy who has the more upside of a crazy knockout is Johnny Walker. So are you going to side with the crazy knockout upside of Walker to catch Smith cold in the first or second round, or are you going to, bank on Anthony Smith's technical boxing, his good low kicks like he showcased against Jimmy Crute, his better grappling, and the much more overall well-rounded and polished skill set of an Anthony Smith? I thought Anthony Smith was going to beat Magomed Ankalaev. Obviously, that pick looked terrible. It's like the fights where I feel like Anthony Smith's going to show up, he doesn't show up, and the fights where I think it's going to be a little bit difficult for him, he wins with flying colors. Like, I picked him against Jimmy Crute, and a lot of people called me crazy, and that fight was great for him. Like, yeah, he got taken down. Yeah, he had some adversity. For the most part, the jab of Anthony Smith was piecing up Jimmy Crute, the right low kicks, until he eventually got a midpoint between the first and second round leg kick TKO victory because Jimmy Crute got that drop from the calf kicks. The better kicker in terms of low kicks is Anthony Smith. The better kicker in terms of overall variety in kicks is going to be Johnny Walker. The more powerful, explosive striker is going to be Johnny Walker. The more technical fighter overall is going to be Anthony Smith. The more technical boxer, the sharper boxer, Anthony Smith. The bigger power, like I said, on the side of Johnny Walker. This is a fight where it's pretty much flip a coin because I could see it going either way. Smith has had durability issues. Smith gets hurt in almost every single one of his fights, as does Johnny Walker. There's no way you could be confident on either side, whether you're on the Anthony Smith side, who's fought the better competition, or on the side of Johnny Walker. I'm going to side with Johnny Walker here. I'm a big fan of Anthony Smith, but I'm going to go with Johnny Walker to catch Anthony Smith in round one and knock him out with a crazy, knee up the middle or a crazy flying knee. I think he's going to walk Smith into something and knock him out. I'd like to see Anthony Smith win. I'm a bigger fan of Anthony Smith. I think, like I said, he is the much better fighter. But at this point, being on the desk, and things like that, I think Smith's head might be a little bit out of the game in terms of his actual professional MMA career, and he might be focused more on the analyst work. And I think Johnny Walker is on a streak. I think he's got a lot of confidence here, which could bite him in the ass. But I do think Anthony Smith is going to get caught with a big shot dropped and knocked out in round one. I won't say a clean knockout. I'll say a TKO, but I am going to go with Johnny Walker here as the even money -110. I think if you take Anthony Smith, you take Smith inside the distance or Smith by submission, because I think if he can employ the grappling, he will be able to flatten out Johnny Walker, ground and pound him, and eventually lock up a rear naked choke like we've seen him do so many times before. And especially in fights where we've seen him be losing, and looks like he was going to be put out, but he was able to find a way to get back in, kind of where he got his nickname in Lionheart. But I am going to go with Johnny Walker to find that KO in round 1, but this is a fight where I wouldn't bet on it any side. I'm a bigger fan of Smith, but I am going to side with Walker, who's on the streak, and I feel like is taking the game a little more serious at this point than Anthony Smith. So give me Johnny Walker to defeat Anthony Lionheart Smith via first round knockout. Betting side, though, I don't touch this fight at all.